The violence scenes at Parliament will be hard for many of us to forget. They will go down in history. And while protesters may have been removed and order restored, is the threat of further violence really over? Police Minister Poto Williams joins us live this morning. Good morning, Minister.
Morning. Good morning, Ryan.
Is the threat over?
I think that there are lots of protest actions, currently occurring across the country. So while police have done an extraordinary job at dealing with the issues in Wellington, I do want to send my grateful thanks out to them. There's no doubt that there is some further work to do, not just by the police, but by all of us, to ensure that those who are feeling really marginalised, who are feeling disaffected, are able to have a sense of being restored back into the whole. There's a big piece of work that we need to do around that.
It's interesting you're talking about them as being marginalised rather than a minority. Like, the language seems to have changed from that used by the Prime Minister and Trevor Mallard. Is that intentional?
No, I don't think so. This is the way I view it. And from my point of view, having come from an environment where violence, family harm and mental health are apparent, there's no doubt that there are people who live at the edges. There's no doubt that things like social media and the algorithms that form the content that we access, and there's have contributed to a lot of what's happening here, and people are looking for answers to some of the big questions, and it's really about where the sources of truth are. I think for all of us, Ryan, we all have a part to play in that.
And that includes all of our politicians as well. So you see them as marginalised. You don't want to demonise them too much. You don't want to ostracise them too much. You'd prefer to try and find a way to include them in society.
No, there's no doubt that what has happened over the last 3 weeks in Wellington has been excessive. It's been disrespectful to our precious places, and it's been intimidating and threatening. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to minimise.
No, totally, yeah.
And, the threats to, whether that's to school children going to school, whether that's to people who work in the Parliament buildings or just the general public. But what I want to see going forward is a real conversation and dialogue about how we as a country can, increase the edges so that we include people so much more that they don't feel like they are not part of the picture that we are painting as a nation. That's a big conversation for us to have.
Totally. If something like this was to happen again, and let's face it, the chances are pretty high, given that there are, Andrew Costa told us yesterday, 50 to 100 in Wellington alone who were agitating for a right, basically. Would we handle it differently, do you think? Would we use different language? Would we try to be more inclusive? Would we try to reach out and offer an olive branch?
Oh, look, Ryan, I think this protest demonstrated that the police were really clear. They wanted a peaceful resolution to this. And in the early stages, they were able to have conversations that led them to believe that a resolution was possible. Clearly, over the course of those 3 weeks, those moderate voices left the scene, and they left it to those who are most disaffected in our community, those who are feeling most aggrieved, and those most likely to use violence. And that's why on Wednesday we saw the operation come to the conclusion that it did. That is never something that we as a nation want to see. But it had to occur because it was clear that the people involved were becoming increasingly violent and threatening, and that had to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you aware right now, just very quickly, are you aware right now of any present dangers or threats to public places or public figures?
Well, police are actively monitoring the groups of people who left Parliament and have, chosen to take up in other places. They're keeping a really close watch on that. And in fact, the police are doing lots of assurance and visible patrols around Wellington and the surrounds to reassure the public that they are willing and able to act very quickly should things become out of hand. And, and they will do so, and we've seen that they will.